Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited, as always, to introduce our guest to you. But before I do, there are some people I want to thank that we always thank. We want to thank brassandwinds.com, a Quinn the Eskimo company. When we need brass and wind instruments, we would never think of going to anyone but brassandwinds.com. They've been fantastic to us over the years, and we want to say thank you to them. You are watching Truer MU, the truth about music. We cover all sorts of subjects, interview all sorts of interesting people. If you want to learn to play the piano on your own, we have a course for that. But for now, we're going to be talking to another interesting person, and I'm going to introduce him to you now. Neil Garrard has performed on stage with Drake, Nicki Minaj, Big Boy of Outkast, and many more. He's been seen on NPR's Tiny Desk Concert. He's been seen on the Late Show with David Letterman and Jim Henson Studios, among countless others. And he's going to be joining us as the Willow School Music's guitar instructor. And that is just thrilling for us. Neil Garrard, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And we're so thrilled you're going to be joining us. And the point of this interview today is not only introduce people who might not know you to you, who are our regular audience, but also to let our people know who are taking lessons at Willow School who you are and what you do, in case they would like to join. And of course, we can teach anyone anywhere in the world. So if you're watching this and you'd like to study with Neil, we can do that too via Zoom. Neil, why don't we start with talking about how you got started playing the guitar?
Sure. So it all started, I was 10 years old. I come from a musical family, and my dad plays, and my mom and sisters all played violin and piano, but he always kind of messed around with all instruments kind of, and picked up, anything he picked up, he could kind of play, and just had that ear for it. So I kind of had expressed interest in guitar, and kind of, it was a positive kind of obsession since then, to where it was something I worked on hours a day after, he taught me just the basics of what I need to learn. And hearing Jimi Hendrix, I think that was a pivotal part too, to where it really made me kind of see what the potential is with the guitar and what's been done with it so far. So so I would say when I was about 10 years old is when I started, and I've been playing ever since. And it's close, roughly around over 20 years of playing. And I still find something new to learn every day with it. So it's a great instrument.
Yeah. Well, what happened after your dad was playing and he taught you some stuff? What happened after you skyrocketed past him? What was his reaction?
Yeah, he was definitely surprised, but definitely encouraging too. Because I mean, he tried in his 20s to go to Tennessee, Nashville, to try to make a name for himself and stuff. But he also had a high school sweetheart that was my mom, and marriage and family was very important to them. So they decided to kind of focus more on that. So he's always loved the fact that I've been able to pursue it and gone further than he did, and it's always been encouraging and everything like that. But once he learned, yeah, I just started playing in bands in high school, doing talent shows, doing countless to kind of things that really, the failures of some of the shows really shaped and kind of made me realize this is, what I really want to do. Because I mean, the worst that can happen is, it doesn't go as planned, which can happen a lot. And when that does, then you just kind of, it's a good, very humbling experience. And then you kind of realize what you need to know for next time. And it makes you kind of more prepared, and, all of that. So yeah, so after he taught me, it was bands all through high school, middle school, or, obviously middle school, high school. And then after that was just trying to find anything I could do as far as work wise. I mean, I knew Atlanta was a big city, but it's all who you know. And I luckily befriended Big Boy of Outkast's younger brother, Jason Patton, and we became friends. And he kind of introduced me to some producers around that studio that Outkast owns in Atlanta. And I was just playing for anybody I could around there, until eventually he kind of heard what I was doing and everything, and kind of had kept me more and more involved. And I had a group that was signed to him. And then the group was hard to stick together because there's 5 people, very little money between us, just trying to make some kind of dream happen. So the tours and everything it was just all became too much, and everybody kind of had different directions they want to go. So we didn't make it through. But I mean, the passion of music and the passion of teaching music was always my biggest kind of goal just in life, just because my sister and mother were both teachers, and they always have done that all their life. And my mom kind of homeschooled us before elementary school and all that. So it kind of really helped me kind of as far as when I started to become a teacher, which was in my early 20s, over maybe 10 years ago. I'm 36 now. So it was around them. But that really got me to think like, huh, I already know so much. I can use this skill kind of and teach and influence, other people that want to do the same thing and kind of already tell them the tricks that I've learned the hard way as far as, whether it was a, audition that didn't go well or whatever it was. And, to kind of give them insight. And I think it's been really good because I mean, as a teacher of music, it's also made me kind of a permanent student because I always will learn when I teach the kids too something else that I may not have even noticed, as much as I've been doing it. So it's been, I mean, it's a lifelong passion of mine and continues to be. And there's still always something else you can do with it, no matter if you think you've done, it all. There's always some kind of new inspiration. So yeah.
You talked about some disasters and you moved past them too quickly. But since you've brought up your teaching, okay, let's have a story or two about some disasters that happened to you that taught you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So there was one thing at Guitar Center called the Battle of the Bands, and it was in their store and it had kind of a stage and everything. And I had this Fender Stratocaster that my dad just put new strings on, and it was a heavier gauge than usual. So it lifted up the bridge, which is kind of this part right here. On an electric, it's got springs to it to where you can, manipulate the sounds and everything. But with this, is a fixed bridge. So it's kind of harder to tell, but it's just that area right where you're picking and everything. So he put on two heavy gauge of strings, which made the bridge kind of rise up. And about when it came time for the audition, playing in front of everybody, about 30 seconds in, it just gave way and all the strings just kind of gave way. The bridge gave way, everything. So all the strings came off the neck and I all of a sudden just instantly didn't have a guitar. I was just holding a piece of wood. So all you can really do is laugh because I mean, it was nothing, there's been times when the string breaks and you just kind of focus on the other strings and all that. But when you have zero strings, zero sound, you just got to laugh it off. And it was kind of one of those competitions where they were, it's your time on stage is it, to where there's no real kind of second chances or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's been a time. But I mean, there's been plenty of times when not being able to hear myself on stage or something, you're not playing to the beat or the rhythm or something like that. I mean, there can be I'd really try to keep it simple on stage with equipment because the fancier I've gotten, the more room for error there's been. So I definitely have a lot of stories of, disasters on stage too, as well. That was one of the earlier ones. And it's always made me kind of more prepared for the next time to know, all the equipment has to be in perfect working order before I just go up there and just play what I know. So, that is a big part of it too, is just taking care of the equipment and making sure, all of that's working as good so you can sound as good as you can.
You don't have to answer this one. That last disaster story, which was great, by the way, I have to say, but that wasn't your fault. Can you tell us a story, if you're willing, of something that you really, in hindsight, knew you should have done better, that, you got yourself in the jam?
I mean, there's always been times when, I guess, as far as, because I also sing too, would be, if my voice wasn't as good because you didn't warm up. I mean, it's a muscle your throat is, so it takes some time. You have to warm up before singing. But as far as the guitar stuff, I mean, there's been times when, I mean, even if it's your fault or not, I mean, the people in the crowd don't know. They just hear you, not sounding good or not sounding what they're expecting to hear. So, I've had plenty of times when cables come out of pedals or just amps quit completely. But as far as it being my own fault, I mean, I'm sure I've started, songs in the wrong keys or something before like that, just from, hitting wrong notes, any of that stuff. It's always kind of inevitable when you're playing guitar. I mean, there was a country guitar player and his name's Junior something. He's a real good picker, but he's always said, I read early on, that if you make the same mistake twice, it's not a mistake. So I've always tried to kind of go by that, to where if it's something that seems like I did it, I can kind of pull it off and seem like it was on purpose by trying to, acknowledge it and kind of always move past it. But most of the time, I mean, I've never been to a show or anything where somebody messes up. I mean, it's more of an endearing thing when somebody messes up on stage, because the crowd kind of connects and sees that, that artist is vulnerable. So the crowd can also sometimes be a lot more supportive when they see you visibly make a mistake, and then it kind of makes the show easier because then everybody's kind of, understanding. But I've definitely had shows where, I was opening for an artist that the crowd also came to see, and meaning that they didn't come to see me. So there wasn't, it wasn't as friendly of crowds too, which sometimes you have to work past too. But if, why you're supposed to be up there and you're playing the best you can, that's all you can really do as far as in the scheme of things. And, the crowds are always going to be a mixed bag, but generally speaking, I mean, in my experience, I mean, it's always been a positive, fun thing to do in front of people and to kind of share your gift, just to see who it also can inspire and just kind of, it's entertainment. So, it brings happiness to others, and everything. Music's such a vital part of everybody's lives. I mean, I don't think most people probably even realize how much it is, in every movie, TV show, even the news has music, everything, to segue or any kind of thing. So it really kind of paints a picture of, the art everybody can create in this world. So, but yeah, as far as stage wise, I mean, I would admit it if I have done something truly embarrassing, but at the same time, I just can't think of anything that I did. I mean, but I'm sure there's been plenty. I mean, I'm sure if there's ever part two of this, I'll come back and think. But I mean, I've done hundreds of shows, and I mean, they've been, very comedic in the sense that you just kind of got to laugh it off and, life kind of thing.
Now, your experience playing is different from a lot of guitar players. You've played with a lot of urban hip hop acts. And if you go on YouTube to look you up, that's what you see a lot of. That's an unusual place for a guitar player to be. And of course, most of these hip hop artists are African American, and you're a white man, and you're playing in these groups. Could you talk a bit about, you talked about how you got into the scene. What's it like playing with those people, and what have you learned specifically from that scene?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think being in Atlanta, it's a heavily influenced, it's a big music place for rap. So I think a lot of artists have kind of, if I've made a name for myself with any producer or anything that wants me to use them, it's mainly rap because it's in this city. I mean, I've been recognized to play for other artists, but they would want me to move to where their kind of home base is. So Atlanta being dominantly rap music, I think kind of what drew me to it was rap's kind of derived from funk music, like Parliament, Funkadelic, kind of even Hendrix, stuff like that, to where it's, it was a lot of instrumentation and all that stuff. But with rap, what they're trying to do is take the best part of that song and then loop it as far as in terms of the music. And then they kind of write from their perspective kind of thing. But it just always influenced me because you just get to hear the best part over and over again. And I know while it can be repetitive, they find a way to loop it to where you just keep on to hear it. It's just more infectious. So what drew me to as far as playing for them as well, as far as it kind of had this punk attitude where it wasn't kind of a classically trained musicians. They just knew what they liked. They knew what they wanted to hear. So they were just all going on kind of that vibe of what they were feeling at the time. So there was no real kind of thoughts about what they were going through or anything going into it. It was just always kind of what they were feeling through them. So it had this kind of rawness to me, but it was actually Outkast. They had an album that was real rock based, and it really sounded like there was a lot of guitar on it and everything. And I've just always been, of course, being a guitarist, I just felt like having guitar over hip hop seemed like such a new thing, just because it is a new way you phrase notes. It is a new way you play things. So that's what I've been trying to do for, the last decade. I mean, I was signed to Big Boy of Outkast as an artist in 2008, and I was 23 then, and sang on one of his songs and got to tour with him actually as a singer first. And even though I've been playing guitar the whole time, but then after that, and so when I started to kind of play as a hired gun, kind of being a backup guitarist for rappers and stuff like that. And it's really fun because they really give you a lot of freedom, because if there's not a lot going on with the song as far as it just being a simple loop, I mean, you can really just kind of fill in the empty spaces of the song and stuff like that. So it's been really fun, and it's a genre now that's really popular, and it's really taken off as far as on a mainstream pop level. So I've gotten to see some cool things and, on the road and traveling because of that too. So it's kind of worked out, but it's been fun. But yeah, I mean, it's a very cool genre because it's also constantly adapting too. I mean, I know with all genres, they always adapt, but I mean, there's not a lot of traditionalists in rap. You hear a lot of like the little somebodies or the young somebodies, because they always want the freshest kind of sound. The newer generation is kind of what always kind of dictates what's going on. So it's a very young genre. So it's fun to kind of see what comes next with it all. But yeah, just being in Atlanta and just slowly working my way up to get, attention from people and to play for the people I've been playing for now. So
have you played in other genres besides rap and hip hop?
I'm trying to think. So I mean, blues I used to play a lot of blues bars and stuff before, like in high school and everything. Blues was always my biggest draw, just because there was so much emotion and they were able to say so much, sometimes with so little, just over how they played that note, kind of the choice of notes, all of that kind of thing. So yeah, so Stevie Ray Vaughan and, a lot of blues guitarists were my biggest influence. And then kind of metal, in the sense of heavy metal, was like the solos were really intricate, almost like it was classically composed as far as just really melodic and stuff. So between blues and heavy metal guitar solos were definitely like the two bands I was in playing in, type genres before rap and stuff. So they were
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
one of the big influences. Yeah.
Tell me about Jim Henson Studios. Now, Jim Henson, of course, the creator of the Muppets. What brought that about?
Sure, yeah, that was random. So I sang on a song with Big Boy called Follow Us. It was his first debut album, and it was also his second single. So I flew with him and his crew and of everybody to perform. We did a couple of events out there. I think I'm trying to think of I think there was one MySpace event actually that we did out there. And well, that was actually, sorry, in Miami. So this was in California. And what we did at the Jim Henson Studios was perform Follow Us, but it was going to be played. Our performance was going to be played on all the Walmart televisions in their electronics center. And I never saw it personally, but we got paid for it, and we didn't really get to see a huge, tour of the studios. It just looked like any other recording studio, but it was cool as far as the outside and stuff. I remember coming in, but I can send you pictures of the actual studios and stuff. It was way back when, but yeah, I was just singing this single I had written and performed with Big Boy. It was for something with Walmart. That was the Jim Henson thing
Nice.
specifically. But I think actually, yeah, we did the George Lopez show out there. That was a late night show. So that same weekend we were out there. We did the George Lopez, and the next day we did performed at Jim Henson Studios for some recording thing. So yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
Tell me what do you love most about playing guitar?
So it's honestly like it brings so much. It brings kind of a therapeutic kind of aspect to where if I'm stressed about something, I can play and it helps me feel better. If I'm, it's brought so many more friends I probably would have never met had it been for not for guitar. I mean, music is such a connecting thing, and even if it can just it can kind of attract people to you for some reason. As far as just seeing people passionate about something that they can relate to, which is music, it kind of helps in the social aspect of making friends. I mean, it was definitely made things a lot easier in that aspect. But I mean, just the music of hearing something new just feels like such a dopamine rush of just feeling and hearing some new sound that sounds so cool to you. Because I mean, I think your brain almost translates like, oh, you thought of that because when it's coming in the next time. It's kind of that kind of rush to where it feels like whatever you're going through with that song kind of makes you feel in control of that song and you're listening to it. I think that's the connection people have with listening to music. So that was what always drew me to guitar, was having some kind of unspoken bond with people that also like the same kind of genre of guitar I liked and everything. So,
Hmm.
you had that instant connection with somebody playing music. If somebody liked it, you could say, oh yeah, what about, it's just an instant kind of friendship because you had that relatability with music. So that was probably the biggest thing, just making it so much easier to connect with people over, whatever song or genre or what it is. But I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play. I mean, it seems like a really surreal thing to do in front of a crowd when you're actually performing and, playing, and kind of always trying to see if it's really happening. It just feels like a very, surreal kind of fun thing to do. That's just a great feeling on stage and everything, the adrenaline and everything, how you feel on stage is just, I don't know. It's a lot of fun as far as just performing something you've worked at for so long that you're confident in. So, I mean, definitely I would say between those two things, just the connection between people and just the fun it is to play for people.
I guess, well, that's a good answer, but that's why you became a musician. I guess what I'm curious about is what drew you to the guitar as opposed to why not the piano?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it did seem like it was almost like I hate to say weapon because those are usually instruments of violence, but I mean, it was almost a weapon in the sense to where I could weaponize how I felt with it, to where when I play fast, it can be kind of, if I'm anxious one day or something, you can kind of really express yourself with it, with the ferocity you can put in the notes, everything about kind of just the way they looked. I love the way they looked, the sounds. There were so many, as far as sound, it can sound like so many instruments, and there's really just a open possibility as far as what you can do with it. So I think just really making it something that I found like that was the way I could express myself the most, was through a guitar, compared to any other instrument. I mean, and also was just one that I just kind of naturally picked up. I tried piano and it was, I couldn't, my mom played and tried to teach me, and it just wasn't something I could do. I think, somebody like you that can play and everything, like it's a gift in itself, to where it seems like it's such a different language because I don't even, my brain isn't wired to think like, how you can play two different things with all your fingers and all that stuff. It's like, it's amazing. So I see why when people are kind of envious or kind of impressed by my guitar stuff, I can kind of see how that's the case with, somebody that does piano or surgery or teaches or something that, I'm not good at. So, but guitar always I was always drawn to it just because it just felt like the best way to express myself as far as, with the instrument itself just kind of made the most sense. How you play it and everything just looked the coolest, all that kind of stuff.
Do you want to play for us now?
Sure. So, I mean, I'd go a little bit by trying to always improvise. I mean, when a lot of 99% of songs and every song I've ever played in, if you know the key of a song, you can, then follow the scales of that key in that key on the neck and play anything essentially. So, I mean, there's really anything you can do. So yes, I mean, it's even all that stuff is improvised, not knowing where you're really going to go next, but it's all just from knowing the scales on the neck. Basically with a scale, I mean, you can't hit a wrong note. So after you learn that and you kind of have it kind of instinctually knowing where everything is, then you can kind of think of how you're going to play that scale differently, because there's only so many notes with guitar, just like in music. I mean, the scales are do, re, mi kind of thing, that kind of thing, but there's endless amount of, kind of ways you can play that in order, anything like that kind of thing. There's no real right or wrong way with guitars, which I like about it too. There's always ways to do better with it. There's always ways to play better and sound better. But as far as, there was a guitarist, I think in the 20s or 30s, Django Reinhardt, he had 2 fingers and he could play faster than most people. So it's something that anybody really can pick up and kind of always find a way to express themselves through it and just have fun with it, honestly. So, I mean, it's, any genre as far as it's a lot of genres have a lot of similarities as far as, blues, classical, all that kind of stuff. You're all kind of expressing just certain human emotions. So essentially with the scales, I mean, you can play different genres with scales, but at the same time, the way you play the note in the scale is what kind of makes the genre in a way. So, that's kind of the coolest thing about it too, is it's so versatile as far as just how you play the strings, how you play the notes. I mean, doing even just like, so that's basically just doing chords, but you're arpeggiating them to where you're just hitting each note to where it's kind of, I guess that would be closer to a piano kind of thing, to where if you're doing the chords, but you're hitting each note kind of staccato, just shortly, kind of that kind of thing with the chords. But yeah, is there any like specific genre, any songs or anything? I mean, that's always the cool thing with scales. If you know the song, you can pretty much play any song
that's really
playing it.
So you've piqued my curiosity here. Why don't you were talking about how the approach to the instrument changes what would be the same music. Can you maybe show us the same music or the same thing and change your approach to show us how either the attack on the strings or maybe like...
Sure, yeah. I mean, it would just be like if you did Old MacDonald or something like that. So, but if you did, a bluesier version of it, you just put in those notes that make it sound more bluesy, like. To where it's kind of the stuff in between it, I guess, is what makes it kind of the flair and everything. But if you did a classical version of Old MacDonald or Twinkle Twinkle is. Kind of just stuff like that, to where it's the same song, but I mean, I don't know if that's a...
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. What about a heavy metal rock and roll Old MacDonald?
So it'd just be faster, kind of. just, I mean, it would be
That's great.
also with an acoustic, like it kind of limits you just because it's acoustic, but having, guitar pedals, having effects, all that kind of stuff can really change the actual tone of the song and of the vibe, pun intended kind of thing. So yeah.
That's wonderful. What's your favorite music for the guitar?
Still probably blues, I guess, just because it's, it was the first thing I kind of really drew me to as far as hearing Hendrix play blues, hearing Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, hearing all these guys. I mean, there was B.B. King. I mean, it would be just their choice of notes. It was I've always tried to minimalize my life and keep it simple just to keep it, less stressful, kind of happier kind of thing. I feel like that kind of helps a lot. So with blues, it just seemed like a really pure genre because what they were playing, they were just focused on that. They weren't trying to go for any other reason, but just for, what they were expressing kind of thing. And even though there's a lot of similarities with blues, I mean, I've always been attracted to guys that kind of used the traditional aspects of blues and then kind of made it their own and made it a more modernized and just more developed and kind of progressive kind of genre kind of thing. So that's the thing about music. I mean, you can sound like somebody if you want to, or you can intentionally not, and there's no wrong way. You can always play a song your way or however, or their way kind of thing. So that's what's always really, the freedom in music is always what's really kind of attracted me to it. But blues probably, I mean, just because it's, I wouldn't even say it's easy to play, but it's just the one that I think people kind of maybe think of with guitar when they think of guitar the most. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, what do you think of, is there a certain genre you think of, I guess, when you hear, the word guitar? I guess rock, blues.
Well, I mean, there's so many. Of course, I think of classical guitar right off the bat. I think of country music right off the bat and folk music, blues for sure. But it's just one of many that I think of that come to mind.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, that would be it for me as far as just, just blues and whole is what got me really started in guitar and kind of progressing there from there.
Is there music that doesn't involve the guitar that you really like?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, now you can basically have a whole band just on a laptop. And I mean, people are considering laptops to be more of an instrument, even though it's not a traditional instrument. There's a lot of electronic music I really like because they are making the notes some way or another. But besides that, traditionally, I would definitely think the horns. I love trumpets and trombones, just the tone they have and can get out of it. It's just so beautiful. So trumpet would definitely be my favorite instrument as far as, it's not guitar.
All right. So let's talk briefly about your approach to teaching.
Sure. So I always want people to remember, why they're there in the first place. It's not a chore. It's not a job. It's not anything. So it is going to always be fun. It's always going to be a lighthearted kind of, appointment. Every time we meet, it's going to be fun. I'm going to just always make sure what's best for each student kind of thing. I have, lesson plans and things like that once I meet the student, once I know, but each one is catered to that student just because, if they want to learn something a different way, if they want to, whatever it is, I want to do what piques their interest. And then once they feel like they've done enough of that, we can always go to the next thing. At the same time, I will always, make sure the fundamentals like scales, modes, chords, all that stuff goes with every genre. So I'll teach them about probably half of that and then half of what they want to do at the time or something like that. So it's really kind of, as long as our lesson is, it'll be kind of half will be in fundamentals, half will be in, what, is the student most excited about with this instrument? How can we keep that kind of excitement and kind of interest going? Because that really is all it is. I mean, you just find what it is they're excited about and then just kind of keep that going just to kind of help them fuel what that is.
What is it you want people to know about the guitar that they may not know about it?
So I mentioned earlier about how it was kind of therapeutic. I mean, it is a thing to where if you're stressed out, if you're doing, worried about something, you can kind of play, and it's a great distraction because it's something that's, your brain is kind of constantly thinking and firing off, where to go next, all this kind of thing. It's something that I don't think people realize how much therapeutical it is, just because, I mean, there's videos I've seen on YouTube of people in, nursing homes not really remembering as much as they wanted to, but when an instrument is put in front of them, they can still go back to playing it. And I think there's just a big connection with that as far as what we can do with music and how it kind of can relate to all of us kind of thing. So just that, with that being said, and just, that it's, that would be, I guess.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We cannot wait to work with you.
Sounds great. You guys are great. I can't wait to work with you guys and to meet all the students and yeah, really get some happy students that want to, play what they want and make some progress going as quick as we can.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you folks for tuning in and watching this interview with us. We love to have you watch. Please like our videos. Please subscribe to our channel. There's something new every week coming your way. And we've talked to people from Liberty DeVito, Billy Joel's drummer, to Mother's Finest, a great, wonderful band that's from Atlanta, to people who make their living colorizing television shows and things like that. So there's all sorts of stuff to see. If you have any suggestions for people you want us to interview, or if you would like to be on the show yourself, contact me. I'm at adam@willowschoolga.com. Friends, we will see you next time. Thank you very much.